The moment the red wine hit my face, time slowed. I felt the liquid soak into my dress, warm and sticky, the scent of ripe berries and alcohol filling my nostrils. The gasps around the dinner table echoed like distant thunder, but no one moved. No one said a word. Then came the laughter. His laughter. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" My husband, James, smirked, swirling the remaining wine in his glass like he had just delivered the best punchline of the night. His friends chuckled nervously, glancing at each other, unsure whether to join in or look away. I swallowed hard. My cheeks burned, not just from the wine, but from humiliation. This was supposed to be a casual dinner with James's friends, an evening where I, Kaya, was the supportive wife, the woman who smiled in the right places, laughed at the right jokes. Instead, I had become the entertainment. I could feel all their eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. I took a deep breath, wiped my face with my napkin, and stood up. Slow, controlled, graceful. "Excuse me," I said simply, my voice steady, giving nothing away. Then I turned on my heel and walked away, ignoring the whispers trailing behind me. Inside, my heart pounded, my hands trembled, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I left the restaurant and drove home alone. James didn't chase after me. He was too busy reveling in his moment, playing the charming host, deflecting the uncomfortable glances of his friends with another joke. This wasn't the first time he had humiliated me in public. It had started small, belittling my ideas during conversations, making sarcastic remarks about my hobby when I spoke about my photography business. But lately, the comments had turned crueler, sharper, and now this, a public spectacle. Still, as I sat in the quiet of our dimly lit kitchen, I asked myself the same question I always did. Was it really that bad? I hated that part of me, the part that always wanted to justify his behavior, the part that told myself he didn't mean it, that he was just stressed, that maybe I had embarrassed him somehow. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry, not yet. The anger would come later. What I felt now was something far more dangerous. Clarity. I heard the front door open, James's footsteps echoing down the hall, slow and casual. I pictured him, tie loosened, still basking in the glow of the evening, expecting to find me sulking, maybe even crying, so he could wrap his arms around me and say something dismissive. "You know I was just joking, babe. Don't be so sensitive. You embarrassed yourself more by overreacting." I had heard it all before, but tonight there would be no argument, no begging for an apology he wouldn't mean, no second chances. He stepped into the kitchen and saw me sitting at the table, my laptop open, a pen in my hand, writing something down in my notebook. His smile faded. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked up at him, my face calm. "Making a list," I said. His brows furrowed. "A list of what?" I closed the notebook softly. "Of everything you've ever done to me." He laughed, an uneasy chuckle, the confidence in his voice slipping. "Oh, come on, Kaya, don't be dramatic." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached for my phone and pulled up a video. I turned the screen toward him. It was the dinner party. Someone had recorded it, and now, so had I. James's smirk twitched as he stared at the phone screen, the dim glow reflecting off his face. His hand tensed around the edge of the counter, his confident posture suddenly uncertain. "What is this?" he asked, his voice lower now. "Exactly what it looks like." On the screen, the video played, his voice clear, his laughter sharp, the splash of red wine staining my dress, the way I had simply wiped my face and walked away, and the reaction of his friends, some amused, others visibly uncomfortable. "Someone recorded it," I said, locking eyes with him. "They thought I should have a copy." I saw the flicker of fear behind his annoyance. James was a man who thrived on reputation. He had built his career on charm, on being the guy everyone liked. He wasn't the smartest or the most hardworking, but he was the one people wanted to have drinks with. The one who made jokes at just the right moments. But this was different. "Delete it," he said, his voice turning firm. "Right now." I tilted my head. "Why? It's just a joke, isn't it?" His jaw tightened. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "You're overreacting, Kaya. Nobody cares about stupid things like this." "It was just a joke," I finished for him. "Tell me, James, if I had done the same to you, would it still be funny?" His lips pressed into a thin line. Of course not. If the roles had been reversed, if I had humiliated him in front of my friends, thrown a drink in his face, and laughed at his expense, he would have stormed out. He would have called me unstable, embarrassing, ridiculous. But James had spent years convincing me that his words were always just jokes, while my feelings were overreactions. Not anymore. "Kaya, come on." He forced a laugh, but I could see the cracks forming in his facade. "What are you trying to do here? Punish me? You're being ridiculous." I stood up slowly, picking up my notebook and flipping through the pages. "Do you know what this is?" I asked, tapping my fingers against the worn paper. James scoffed. "A diary of every time I pissed you off?" "Close," I said. "It's a record of every insult, every lie, every time you've made me feel small." I held his gaze. "I've been keeping track, James, and guess what? There's a pattern." His expression flickered between amusement and irritation. "You need to stop watching those dramatic self-help videos, Kaya. This is insane." "Is it?" I asked, stepping closer. "Because it wasn't insane when I sat quietly and let you treat me like an accessory to your life. It wasn't insane when you made me feel like I was lucky to have you, instead of the other way around." I saw it then, the moment it truly hit him. I wasn't just upset. I was done. James exhaled, shaking his head. "Fine, you're mad, I get it. So what now? You hold this video over my head forever?" I said I was sorry, he added. "You haven't actually apologized yet." "Jesus, Kaya, fine, I'm sorry, okay? I shouldn't have done it. Can we move on now?" There it was. Not real remorse, just irritation that I wasn't brushing it off like I always had. Moving on. I let the words roll over my tongue, as if I was testing them. James's body relaxed slightly. "Good. That's all I'm asking." "Oh no," I corrected. "I meant me moving on, not us." His head snapped up. "What?" "I called a lawyer today." I let the words settle between us. He blinked like I had spoken in a language he didn't understand. "You're not serious." I held up my phone again, this time showing a different screen, a list of legal consultation appointments. "Very serious." His laugh was hollow. "You're overreacting, Kaya. You're not actually going to throw our marriage away over this." "Our marriage?" I arched a brow. "The one where you insult me in public? The one where you make me feel like I'm nothing?" I shook my head. "James, I didn't ruin our marriage." "You did. I just finally decided to stop pretending otherwise." James ran a hand over his face, pacing the kitchen. He muttered something under his breath before turning back to me. "What do you want, huh?" His voice turned sharp. "Do you want me to get on my knees and beg? Is that what this is?" "I don't want anything from you, James," I said simply. "That's the point." He laughed again, but there was nothing amused about it. "You're being dramatic. You won't actually go through with this." I just smiled. "Wait and see." I turned to leave, but before I reached the hallway, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. "Oh, and James," I said lightly, "I'd think twice before laughing this off in front of your friends. You never know who else has a copy of that video." I didn't wait for his response. For the first time in years, I didn't care what he had to say. I just walked away. James didn't chase after me. Not right away. That wasn't his style. He liked to win, to manipulate, to wear me down with charm or, if necessary, with guilt. He was probably telling himself that I'd cool off, that I'd wake up in the morning and regret everything. He was wrong. I barely slept that night, but not because I was second-guessing myself. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. My mind was still buzzing, my heart still raw, but beneath it all was clarity, a quiet, resolute certainty. I was leaving him, and this time, I wouldn't let him talk me out of it. By the time I stepped into the kitchen the next morning, James was already there, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee in hand. He looked at me like he was waiting for something. An apology, maybe. A sign that I was ready to talk this through. I gave him nothing. So he finally said, setting his mug down, "You had your little moment. You're feeling better now?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. "I'm not having a moment, James." "Right." He let out a scoff. "You're still sticking with this ridiculous divorce talk, huh?" I turned away from him, opening the cabinet to grab my own mug. I wasn't going to engage in his game. That was what he wanted, to turn this into a fight he could win, to push my buttons until I exploded so he could twist it into me being the irrational one. When I didn't answer, his tone shifted. "Kaya, come on. We've been married for 8 years. You're seriously going to throw all of that away over one stupid night?" I turned to face him, my expression unreadable. "I'm not throwing anything away, James. You did that a long time ago. I'm just finally ready to admit it." I watched his face carefully, and for the first time I saw it. The fear. It was just a flicker, quickly masked by irritation, but it was there. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he said, his voice sharper now. "You think anyone actually cares about that video? My friends were laughing, Kaya. Nobody's taking this as seriously as you are." I leaned against the counter, tilting my head. "You sure about that?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling for a second before holding the screen up to him. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Check the comment section, James." The video, the one his friend had recorded, had been shared in their private group chat, the same one they used to share sports bets, inside jokes, and workplace gossip. Only this time, the messages weren't what he expected. Man, that was rough to watch. Dude, I don't think that was funny at all. Kind of messed up. Is Kaya okay? James's eyes darted over the screen, his grip on the phone tightening. "Why are you showing me this?" he snapped. "Because you seem to think your friends found it funny. Turns out, not everyone agrees." I could see the muscles in his jaw clench, his hands balling into fists at his sides. James hated looking bad. He cared about perception more than anything else, about being liked, about being admired. And now, for the first time, he was realizing that maybe, just maybe, people weren't laughing with him. They were laughing at him. "Okay, fine," he said, his voice low. "You made your point. You embarrassed me. Congratulations. Now delete the damn video, Kaya." I took a slow sip of my coffee, my heartbeat steady. "No." His face darkened. "Excuse me?" "I'm not deleting it, James, and I'm not staying with you." He let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head. "You think you're the only one who can play games? You want to go through with this? Fine, but don't think for a second I'm just going to roll over and let you take everything." There it was. The real James, the charming husband, the one who cracked jokes and played the role of the good guy. That was just a mask. Beneath it, he was exactly what I had always feared he was. A man who needed control. "I built this life too," he continued, stepping closer. "You think you can just walk away and leave me with nothing? You'd better think twice, sweetheart." I stared up at him, refusing to let him see the flicker of unease in my chest. "You're right, James," I said softly. "You did build this life, and I hope you enjoy it, because by the time I'm done, it's all you'll have left." He frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" I set my coffee down, picked up my bag, and walked toward the door. Before stepping out, I turned back just long enough to deliver the final blow. "By the way," I said over my shoulder, "you might want to check your bank account." And then I left, leaving him standing there, confusion and anger written all over his face. The first sign that James was unraveling came just 2 hours later. I was sitting in a quiet cafe, sipping a latte, when my phone buzzed on the table. I didn't have to look to know who it was. James. What the hell did you do? I took my time finishing my sip before unlocking my phone. Kaya, answer me now. I set the phone down and smiled. I wasn't going to respond. Not yet. Let him sweat. I already knew what he was discovering. Last week, when I first started considering leaving, I had moved half of our shared savings into a separate account under my name. Legally, I was entitled to it. I had earned just as much as he had. The difference was I had been smart enough to prepare. I had also removed myself as a co-signer on his credit card and frozen our joint account. If he wanted money, he would have to rely on his own. And that was a problem for James, because James wasn't good with his own money. He lived like a king on payday and complained like a pauper by the end of the month. Expensive nights out, overpriced gadgets, status symbol purchases to impress his friends. It had all drained him faster than he realized. Now he had to face the consequences. I checked my phone again. Kaya, you took our money? Are you insane? Kaya, I swear to God, fix this now. I exhaled slowly, the satisfaction settling deep in my bones. It was our money when I took half. But when he spent thousands on nonsense, that was his right. Typical. The next blow landed harder than the first. I didn't have to wait long to hear about it. That afternoon, my friend Lily called, her voice practically vibrating through the phone. Kaya, please tell me you've seen it. Seen what? I asked, even though I already had a feeling. The post. I opened the group chat Lily and I shared with a few mutual friends. The moment I saw the screenshot, my breath caught. James's boss had posted something, not naming names, but it was obvious who it was, about a man who can't respect his wife in private won't respect anyone in business either. Actions have consequences. James's boss had been at that dinner party, and apparently he hadn't laughed. Comments flooded in, subtle but telling. Wow, people really show their true colors sometimes. Humiliating your own wife in public? Yikes. Glad I know who not to work with. James had built his career on being likable. He wasn't the best at what he did, but he knew people. He charmed them, made them laugh, convinced them he was the guy to invite for drinks after work. But that charm was cracking now, because when you expose someone for who they really are, the people who once admired them start seeing the truth. And James, he was being exposed. I was still scrolling through the fallout when my phone rang. James. I let it ring, then a voicemail. I put in my earbuds and pressed play. Kaya, what the hell is going on? My boss won't return my calls. People are treating me like I'm some kind of monster because of you. His voice was shaking, anger barely contained. This is beyond petty. This is cruel. You're ruining my life over a damn joke. A pause. Then, quieter, almost desperate. Come on, babe, I didn't mean it like that. You know that. I closed my eyes. I knew that tone well. The shift from rage to pity, from anger to guilt-tripping. He was grasping, trying to pull me back into the cycle. But I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. By evening, James had gone from demanding to bargaining. Another message. Let's talk. Just us. No fighting, please. I stared at the words for a moment before typing back. Fine. Meet me at the house in an hour. Then I picked up my bag and headed out. When I arrived, James was already there, pacing. He turned sharply when I walked in. Okay. He exhaled. Let's be adults about this. Let's talk like normal people. I folded my arms. Go ahead. Look, I was an ass, I admit that. He ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. I was drunk. It was a stupid joke, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I raised an eyebrow. You weren't drunk, James. You had half a glass of wine. His jaw twitched. Fine, whatever. The point is I messed up, but you're going nuclear here. You're cutting off the accounts, turning people against me. What do you want? Revenge? I sighed, tilting my head. No, James. I just want to be done. His expression darkened. So that's it? You're walking away? Just like that? Just like that. For a second, he looked lost, as if it was only now sinking in that he wasn't winning this one. What am I supposed to do, Kaya? I shrugged. Figure it out. You always told me I was the problem. Now you get to see what life is like without me. His face hardened. You're going to regret this. I smiled faintly. No, James. You are. I turned and walked toward the door, feeling the weight of years fall from my shoulders. Before I stepped outside, I spoke one last time, not bothering to look back. Oh, and by the way, you might want to check your email. Then I left, leaving James standing alone in the house he once controlled, with the storm he never saw coming about to hit him full force. James wasn't ready for what was coming next. I could picture it perfectly. The way his face would twist as he opened his email, skimming the words, rereading them in disbelief. The way he'd rush to his laptop, typing frantically, hoping that what he was seeing wasn't real. But it was. By the time I got back to my apartment, the one I had quietly leased 2 months ago when I first started planning my escape, my phone was already buzzing. James. I ignored it. Another call, then another. By the time he left the voicemail, I was already pouring myself a glass of wine, settling into my new life with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. But still, I pressed play. Kaya, you... His voice cracked with anger. You're out of your damn mind. What the hell did you do? I took a slow sip of wine. Let's see how he handled this. The email I had sent wasn't to him. It was to his company's HR department. Attached was the video from the dinner party. A clear, undeniable display of verbal and emotional abuse. In public, no less. I didn't have to say much. Just a simple professional message. I am reaching out to formally report my soon-to-be ex-husband, James Carter, for repeated patterns of verbal and emotional abuse, as demonstrated in the attached footage. This is only one instance, but it reflects an ongoing issue that has impacted both his personal and professional reputation. Given your company's values, I felt it was important that this behavior be acknowledged. I knew exactly what I was doing. James worked for a company that prided itself on corporate ethics and leadership accountability. They hosted workshops on workplace respect, diversity, and inclusion. Their HR department took PR scandals very seriously, and now they had evidence of one of their own employees humiliating his wife in public. He wouldn't be able to talk his way out of this one. My phone rang again. This time I answered. Kaya. His voice was frantic, stripped of the confidence he always carried. I stayed silent. You sent that email? Are you serious? Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, I said calmly. I made sure they saw you for who you really are. God, Kaya, this is my career. What the hell is wrong with you? I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. Oh, now it matters? Now you care about consequences? Funny, because when I was sitting there, drenched in wine, listening to you laugh, you didn't seem too concerned about my reputation. That was different. No, I interrupted. It wasn't. His breath came in sharp and uneven, his frustration barely contained. Look, we don't have to do this. You're mad, I get it, but we can fix this. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you were overreacting. We can make this go away. I almost laughed. Even now, he thought I could be persuaded, that I could be managed. You still don't get it, do you? I said softly. I don't want to fix this, James. I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything. Silence, then a quiet, strained whisper. You're really doing this? I already did. The fallout was swift. By the next morning, James's boss had called him in for an urgent meeting. By the afternoon, he was suspended, pending an internal review. And by the end of the week, the company announced his termination. He tried to fight it, tried to argue that it was unfair, that it was a private matter, that his wife was just vindictive. But the video spoke louder than his words ever could. And it wasn't just his job he lost. His reputation collapsed. Clients pulled out of projects. Colleagues distanced themselves. Friends stopped returning his calls. It wasn't just about the dinner party anymore. People started remembering all the other things, the offhanded sexist comments, the way he always dismissed women in meetings, the microaggressions. His world wasn't falling apart. It was revealing itself for what it always was. And without his power, his charm, his connections, James was nothing. A week after his termination, James showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to see him, to look him in the eye one last time. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. His once pristine suit was wrinkled, his confidence gone, replaced with something hollow and desperate. "Kaya," he said, his voice softer now. "Can we talk?" I studied him for a long moment. "Talk," I repeated. "Like we always did, where you talk and I sit there and take it." He let out a breath, shaking his head. "I messed up, okay? I get that. But this is too much." "Too much?" I tilted my head. "You mean like throwing a drink in my face in front of an audience? Like laughing at me while I sat there humiliated? Like treating me like I was less than for years?" He swallowed hard. "I just need some time to fix things," he murmured. I need your help." I almost pitied him. Almost. "You always needed my help, James. You just never wanted to admit it." He looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. "I guess I just thought you'd always be there." I exhaled slowly. "Yeah," I said. "So did I." I closed the door in his face, and this time I didn't look back. The door clicked shut, sealing James out of my life for good. I leaned against it for a moment, exhaling slowly, letting the silence settle. No more manipulation, no more mind games, no more waiting for an apology that would never come. For the first time in years, I was free, and I had never felt lighter. I didn't have to check up on James to know what happened next. The whispers started almost immediately. His fall from grace had been public, and the people who once admired him now avoided him. He tried to land another job in the same field, but word had spread. His reputation was stained, and in an industry built on relationships, he had burned too many bridges. He wasn't just out of work. He was out of power. The same friends who used to laugh at his jokes suddenly weren't returning his calls. His savings, what little was left, was draining fast. He tried to fight the divorce settlement, but with the evidence I had collected, his lawyer practically begged him to settle quietly. He lost the house, he lost the respect of his peers, and eventually he lost himself. Lily texted me once, saying she had seen him at a bar, alone, looking small, looking unimportant. I didn't reply. I didn't need to because I didn't care. My life, on the other hand, flourished. The apartment I had moved into wasn't temporary, it was a fresh start. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. Bright, warm, no traces of James's cold, modern aesthetic. And my business thrived. Without James belittling me, without him making me question my worth, I poured everything into it. I expanded, I hired more people, and for the first time in a long time, I realized just how much I had been holding myself back when I was with him. People started reaching out, not because of what had happened with James, but because of what I had done afterward. "You're an inspiration," one woman wrote. "I watched your story unfold and it gave me the courage to leave my own toxic marriage." Others followed, stories of women who had once felt trapped, just like I had. And that's when I realized something. My revenge hadn't been about destroying James. It had been about rebuilding myself. 6 months after I closed the door in his face, I saw James again. It wasn't planned. I was at a networking event, laughing with new business contacts, when I spotted him across the room. He wasn't dressed in the crisp suits he used to wear. His tie was slightly loose, his confidence muted, and he was alone. I didn't approach him. I didn't need to. But he saw me, And in that moment, I watched something shift in his expression. Regret? Not because he had lost me, but because he had never truly seen me until it was too late. For a second, I almost expected him to walk over, to try one last time. But he didn't, because he knew I had won. That night, I went home to my apartment, the one filled with laughter, with warmth, with peace. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and exhaled. This time, I wasn't drowning in red wine and humiliation. I was celebrating. Not revenge, not victory, but freedom. James had thought that throwing that wine in my face was the punchline to some cruel joke, but he had been wrong. It wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. Looking back, I, Kaya, learned that my worth was never tied to James or his approval. His cruelty, that wine thrown in my face, wasn't just a moment of humiliation. It was a mirror showing me how much I'd dimmed my own light to fit into his world. I spent years excusing his behavior, convincing myself it wasn't that bad. But that night, clarity hit. Love doesn't belittle, and strength isn't staying silent. Leaving him wasn't just about escaping pain. It was about reclaiming my voice, my value, my life. I learned that freedom comes from choosing yourself, even when it's terrifying, even when it means walking away from everything familiar. Every step I took, moving money, sending that email, building my business, was a brick in the foundation of a new me. I didn't just survive James. I thrived because I stopped waiting for his permission to shine. The greatest lesson? You don't need to destroy someone else to rise. You just need to stop letting them define you. That glass of wine wasn't the end of my story. It was the spark that set me free.